So, hello, everybody, and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Thank you back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Tuesday, February 9th. Hope everyone's having a good day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Tuesday, February 9th. We are now 9 days into the month of February, and now 2 days from, we are now 2 days out from the Super Bowl 55. I obviously talked about it yesterday. Today is February 9th, another packed day in sports. Rangers lost yesterday, tough loss. We couldn't get any offense generated, which is kind of weird because this season our problem has been goaltending and defense at times. And yesterday the game that was not our our goaltending, was not our defense. It was, matter of fact, it was our offense. We just weren't able to get. A defensive mistake late happened in the game with Libor Hayek, but with him making that backhand pass, there's no need to do that. Obviously, it was a tough loss for the Rangers because these are games you have to win. When they're 0-0, these 1-0 games, these 2-2 games, these games where you're in the game and going into the third period, you got to win these games. Because when the season ends, and if we don't make the playoffs, you're going to look back at these games, these 4-3 losses, these 3-2 losses, these 2-1 losses, these 2-0 losses, these games that you go into the third period with a 0-0 game. You're going to look back at these games and go ahead and say, hey, if we would have just made one or two more plays, we would be in the playoffs right now. I'm not saying playoffs is out of the equation. I'm just saying these are the games that you look back on when you do a review of the season. These 5, 6, 7 game stretch that we're on, where almost every game seems like it's a 1-goal game, and the majority we're losing them. It's just not good. We got to find a way to be better. And the offense yesterday was very rare to see the offense struggle like that. Just because the offense this season has had games where we'll put up 3 goals, but our defense will let up 4. There's been a couple times this season where we've just gotten smoked on the defensive end. Yesterday, that was not the case, and we took a tough loss. That's a very tough loss because you win that game, you're 5-4-2. We play now. We have a very tough stretch. We have to play the Bruins coming up tomorrow. We play the Bruins, and then again on Friday we play the Bruins. So a tough stretch here for the New York Rangers. We got to find a way to we got a tough stretch of games coming up. We got to find a way to win some of those games because every game counts, especially in a 56 game season. So we'll get into that. But the Nets play today. Obviously, we start a 1-game road trip in Detroit. Then we come back home, play tomorrow, and then we head out west after tomorrow's game. This is the front end of a back-to-back. So you have a game today, a game tomorrow, off Wednesday, game Thursday, I think, against the, or is it game Thursday or Friday? I don't know, but then we head out west. We have a West Coast trip, play against the Warriors, the Clippers, the Lakers, and I think the Suns are in there. So it's like a 4-game West Coast trip. A lot of those games are nationally televised. ESPN, 2 of them. ABC, another one. There's a lot of those games are nationally televised. So, should be pretty good. I'm excited. But these are the topics for today's podcast. We got Jonathan VR signed with the New York Mets. The Mets coming in and making, kind of just shaping out the roster, making some final roster decisions, some final roster moves. As free agent, Jonathan VR signs a 1-year deal with the New York Mets. I'll tell you why I think this is a very good deal for the New York Mets. I've really liked Jonathan VR. Obviously, I watched him a ton when he was with the Baltimore Orioles since he was in the Yankees division, and he had a couple really good games against the Yankees. I really started to follow him when he got to the Orioles because he was in our division, and he kind of really, when he got to the Orioles, he had a really good stretch with the Orioles. He probably had the 2 best years of his career with the Orioles. Signed a 1-year deal with them, and then signed again another 1-year deal with them with the Orioles. Obviously, then was a free agent, signed with the Marlins last season. He was split last season. The beginning part was with the Marlins, and the second half was with the Blue Jays. Kind of struggled last year a little bit. Just because of the fact that, he wasn't, with the whole season and stuff. But we'll get into that. I think it's a good move for the New York Mets. Then we got the MLB season plan. The MLB has confirmed its season. The MLB will be starting its season soon, 162-game season, finished up some of the rules. There will be 7-inning doubleheaders. There will be a runner on second base to start extra innings, and there will be no universal DH. So DH is just coming back to the American League. I'll tell you how that affects the Yankees and the Mets with the DH. I'll tell you how that affects the league. I'll tell you some of the things I like about this deal, or like about this plan. I'll tell you some things I don't like about it. There's a lot to like, but there's also a lot to dislike. I'll obviously give you both sides of it. More probably to like, just because it's the MLB. But obviously MLB season plan. Then to finish it off, we got college basketball. Kentucky plays today. NBA, NHL, fantasy, and your rest of your New York sports update. Obviously, Kentucky plays today, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ESPN. So I'll be watching Kentucky and the Nets. We'll probably have, the phone and TV stuff going. So we'll be watching those games. And then your rest of New York sports update and fantasy. So with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get into it. So MLB free agency, Mets Jonathan VR agreed to 1 year, $3.5 million contract per report. So the New York Mets make another free agent move, make another move here in free agency. Not the biggest move in the world, not a move that many people are going to be, saying, oh my gosh, this is the greatest move ever. This is a steal in free agency. This is not a move that's going to help you win a World Series. But I do personally, and this is just me as a baseball fan, I think this move's a very quality move. I'll give you so many different reasons. I will kind of go through a little bit about VR's career here, because he's not a very big name throughout the MLB. I'm sure many people do not know who he is. He's not a household name in the MLB at all. I know who he is only because he was with the Orioles, and he had a couple really good games against the Yankees, and then he was with the Blue Jays last year, so the Yankees played against him a little bit. He was with the Marlins, who the Yankees played a little bit as well. So, he's kind of been bouncing back and forth. He's been in the AL East twice with the Orioles and in the Blue Jays, so I know a lot about him because I've seen him a lot playing, the Yankees, Blue Jays, and Orioles all being in the same division. I've seen him play a ton. So, he started off his career with the Milwaukee Brewers. This is a guy who is not going to... He's not going to be an everyday player. I mean, he was an everyday player with the Orioles, and he proved to be amazing. I mean, he was an everyday player with the Orioles, and he proved to be, that year, he was very good. I mean, he was definitely the best Orioles hitter. He had one game where he hit for the cycle, which is a single, double, triple, and home run all in the same game. He hit for the cycle one game. He really had an excellent run with the Baltimore Orioles. I mean, I just even remember just watching him, and it was fun to watch him. I've grown a lot of, I've really started to like him as a player, just because he's had so many, he's just been, I feel like he's so underrated, and I've seen him play so many times, and he's just so good at times, and things like that. And I'll tell you what, if I'm the New York Mets here, and I'm a New York Mets fan, I would personally like this deal. Now, like I said, is this deal a deal where you're going out and getting a Trevor Bauer, getting a JT Realmuto, getting a George Springer? No, he is nowhere near as big as a name as that. But this is a move that is going to give you a utility guy. He can play virtually every position on the field. I mean, literally almost every position on the field. He's played left field before. He's played center. He played all the infield positions before. Obviously not pitcher and catcher, because you can't just throw a guy randomly in a pitcher or catcher. But he's played pretty much every single position that you can name on a baseball field. He's played the infield. He's played the outfield. He can do it all. And this is another guy, too, that does not have to play every day. There are some guys out there that get into the routine of playing every day, get into the routine of, playing every day, kind of getting into the routine of getting into that routine of playing every day, that, knowing, mentally preparing for me to play that next day. Jonathan VR is not like that guy, which is very good, because sometimes if you try to get a utility guy that he is meant to play every day, and you try not to play him every day, it can be problematic, because a lot of times these guys like to get into rhythms, like to get into these rhythms, these routines to kind of, when it starts when they get up to when they go to bed. They get up, go to the field, do this, do that. And a lot of times, sometimes players struggle when they're not playing every day. Or that's why you see, if an injury-prone season, if you're in one day and then you get injured the next, then you come back, and you play a week and you're injured again. You're on and on and on and off the field. Once a week you're on, a week you're off. You're on, you're off, right? So that's the problem there, and that's why utility guys I think are pretty underrated because people don't realize, you might only play twice a week. But when called upon, you've got to make your presence felt. And that's what Jonathan VR does. He makes his presence felt. He goes out there and when he gets a moment. And that's kind of been his whole career. He's not been this household name. He's not been this big name guy. So when he gets called upon, when he gets told to hit, when he gets told to go out there and make a play, he's going to go out there and capitalize, do it to the best of his ability because that's just how he's been his whole career. A lot of players do that. When you're trying to fight for a roster spot, when you're trying to do that, you got to do that. And same thing with utility guys. You're a utility guy, obviously, when you're not playing every day. What makes a good utility guy is a guy that can go in a 6th, 7th inning of a game. You bring him in, he pinch hits, he can get a hit, right? Guys like that you really need on your team. The New York Mets just got him. Like I said, this is not a huge deal. This is not a $500 million. This is not the highest paid deal of the year. This is not going out there and getting a guy like a Real Muto or that big of a name. It's not like that. As a matter of fact, I didn't really think the Mets would target him. But this is a good deal because you're getting a utility guy. You're getting a guy who can hit. I mean, I think the hitting is one of the most underrated things of his career. I mean, I think this guy is one of the more underrated infielders, one of the more underrated utility guys in the entire league. I mean, you watch this guy hit. He's got very good power. He's got a very good swing, and his infielding is very good as well. He can play the infield well. He can play the outfield well. He could do it all. Obviously, with the Mets, they don't have a DH, so this guy obviously can't play DH. But there would even be moments where I think with the Orioles we'll have a couple DH games because of his power. His power is very underrated as well. Really, is every part of his game very underrated. He's got a very good game, very good swing. Keeps his eye on the ball, good mechanics. Overall, a solid player. And like I said, this is not a move that everyone's going to know about. I'm sure half the MLB barely even know who Jonathan VR is. But this is a move for New York Mets fans. I would be excited about this move. I wouldn't be insanely excited to the point where this move is going to help you win a World Series. No, but this move is going to bolster you. It's going to give you depth. And a lot of people always say that depth doesn't matter. Depth matters. Depth is a big part of your team. He's going to give you that utility guy. He's going to give you depth. He's going to give you a good bat in the lineup because Lindor's not going to be able to play all 162 games. He's not going to be able to play all 162 with you giving up a Meta Rosario. You bring in Jonathan VR. He's going to be a solid player. I think it's a very good move for the New York Mets. Now, for the New York Mets here, the New York Mets, to be honest, I know I've said this so much about the New York Mets. About how they've missed out on virtually every free agent, and they have. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to give credit where credit's due here. The New York Mets, look at the big picture. Their offseason wasn't where a lot of fans expected it to be, or while a lot of fans really wanted it to be. I mean, you can agree. I think a lot of Mets fans can agree. You didn't get Real Muto. You didn't get Bauer. You didn't get Springer. Really the big one was Bauer and Springer. I mean, everyone had you getting Bauer and Springer. You got Lindor. I mean, I got to give that to you. You got Lindor, but you really didn't get anyone else. You obviously got VR, but I'll tell you what. The New York Mets have really done really well on their small name moves. Trevor May gives you really good bullpen depth. Going to come out of the bullpen. He's going to be able to throw you 1-2 innings, maybe 3 if you stretch him out a little bit. He's got good velocity on his fastball, got good off speed. His command might be a little bit of an issue, but for the most part, if he's on, he controls his command. You bring in a guy like a Jonathan ER. He's going to give you power in the lineup. He's going to give you a guy who can come in at any moment and make an impact. He's going to give you solid infielding, going to give you solid hitting. Maybe the one part of him, he's very quick. He's very good base stealer. Maybe the one thing you can improve is maybe his infielding a little bit. He's a solid infielder, but his hitting, I think, is really the strength of his game. This guy brings really good power. And then you bring in James McCann, a guy who is one of the more, average, well-rounded catchers. He might not be great at one particular thing, but he is decent at a bunch of other things. He's average at a bunch of other things. And you're bringing a guy like a James McCann who can hit, who can defensively is very underrated, has worked on that. So, to be honest with the New York Mets, as much as it was about getting the big names, it was obviously all the Mets fans, if you're going to, when spring training starts and when the season starts, you're going to look at what to take away from the offseason. Everyone's going to be, we got Lindor. But you really got to look at the 3 little signings. Trevor May, James McCann, and Jonathan VR. If we're sitting here middle of the year and these guys are making the most impact out of all the signings, I wouldn't be surprised. And I will tell you what, I definitely think these could be the most crucial signings of it all, because these are the little signings that are going to help you do the little things and that are going to help you build. And Jonathan VR is still very young. Trevor May's still young. James McCann's still young. Lindor is also still young. But you also got to realize, VR, when Lindor's not out there, VR is. That's a crucial move, because Lindor's not going to be able to play every game. And then you gave up Ahmed Rosario in that Lindor deal, so you're bringing VR in. I think the Mets have capitalized on a lot of really good small moves, but you look at the big moves, they did terrible. I mean, they went 1 for 10? They did terrible on the big name moves, but they did really good on the small name moves. You got May, you got McCann, you got VR, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're the ones making some of the high impact, because that's just how a lot of times what happens. Guys like Lindor, all the pressure coming here, Lindor and Carrasco, and obviously mainly everyone's focused on Lindor, but they both came over here. All the pressure's on them. I really feel like these moves can really help them out a lot. And I think Jonathan VR is going to do well here. He did well with the Orioles. He's very good too. He's been really with small market teams his whole career. He's obviously come to a little bit of a bigger market here, but I don't think that's going to impact him much. He was with the Brewers, with the Orioles, then split time last year with the Marlins and then the Blue Jays, and now it's coming here. Last year VR struggled, but I think part of the reason was it was 60 games. He had to go from Miami to Toronto. Let me mind you, too, it was at the trade deadline, so he literally was playing, got traded, and then had to go to Toronto. And the funny part is in Toronto, they weren't even playing there. They were playing in Buffalo. So it's not even like he was a Blue Jay, but he never even spent one day probably in Toronto. It's as crazy as it may sound, it really is. So, a lot went on for him last season, getting traded in a 60-game season at the deadline, and being that guy in a crazy year to get traded really throws things off. And Lindor, I think, is going to come back this year stronger and better, especially knowing that they have, especially knowing that they're in a much better spot. Here we go. So, let's see here. Let's see. So MLB free agency, Mets Jonathan VR, like I said earlier, agreed to a 1 year, $3.5 million contract per report. Like I said, this isn't a deal. This is another thing. I'm a big fan of these deals, these smaller moves, right? This isn't a deal that it's not going to propel you all the way up here, but it's going to move you up a little bit. It's going to help depth. It's going to help your rotation. It's going to help you when your player like a Lindor needs rest or someone like that. You can bring him in. But it's not that much money. It's a 1 year deal. If he struggles, you get him out of your 1 year. You only wasted $3.5 million. That's not that much, right? And it's the same thing with that. And it's the same thing, with kind of how Lindor's been. A lot of 1 year, 2 year deals. And if he's struggling and he's not doing anything middle of the year, you just trade him at the trade deadline, because we saw the Marlins do that, right? So it's not like a move that you're fully committing on this guy. This guy's got to go out there and give you great performances all the time, because if he doesn't have a great year, you didn't pay him much. So, a lot of times utility guys are that kind of 1 year deal. It's not because they don't deserve that much money. It's just because they're a utility guy. They bounce around the league. The Yankees added Ronald Torreyes, who was one of the better. He was so much fun to watch. He was a utility guy. One day he'll be playing third base. The next day he's first. The next day he's center. The next day he's right. The next day he's shortstop. And he was still able to maintain all that. And that's what's crazy. They always make jokes. The utility guys have the most gloves on the field. They need a first base glove, an outfield glove, an infield glove. They can do it all. Let's read this here, and I'll read this article, and I kind of want to get into some of his stats and show you that he did have, he's had a couple of really good seasons. Last year he struggled. He didn't have the greatest year last year, but for the most part, his outlook of his career has been pretty solid. The New York Mets have signed free agent infielder Jonathan VR to a 1 year, $3.5 million contract. John Heyman of MLB Network reports. The deal includes additional incentives, and the Mets plan to have VR fill a utility role off the bench, Heyman reports. VR, 29, has the ability to play second base, shortstop, third base, and the outfield, and imposes excellent speed and base running skills. This will give the Mets more depth and positional flexibility, and be especially helpful considering there does not appear to be a universal DH implemented for the upcoming season. VR has seen more time in the major at short than any other position, but he's more a second baseman or utility man at this point. Besides, the Mets are good at shortstop after their trade for four-time All-Star Francisco Lindor after Mets second baseman Robinson Cano was suspended for the 2021 season because of second PED test. Jeff McNeil is expected to return to his natural position at second. That being said, VR is coming off of a down season and likely won't see an everyday role if both the infield and outfield for the Mets stay healthy. In the abbreviated 2020 campaign, VR hit .232, .301, .292 in a 52 games split between Miami Marlins and the Toronto Blue Jays. With the Baltimore Orioles in 2019, VR looked solid, hitting .274, .339, .453 with 33 doubles, 5 triples, 24 home runs, 73 RBIs, 111 runs, and 40 steals in 162 games. A switch hitter, VR has career slash line of .259, .327, and 400 and 218 stolen bases in his 8 MLB seasons. So, you look at the numbers, they're quality numbers. And I said with the Orioles, they're quality numbers. Are they great? They're not great. They're quality numbers. He's going to go out there, give you a quality performance day in, day out, and be a quality player. That's what That's what Jonathan VR is going to do. And like I said, it doesn't only have to be. What's just so funny about the Mets is the fact that at the beginning of the year, everyone was saying how they were going to be so dominant in the free agency and they're going to get virtually every player. Meanwhile, in my opinion, their better moves have come from the smaller moves. With James McCann and now VR. And like I said, I like VR. I'm not going to go out there and buy his jersey, but I like him. I'll root for him. Now that he's a Met, I don't root for the Mets. It's just how it is. I can't stand the Mets, but I don't like to give credit to the Mets, but this was a good move by Steve Cohen and the Mets front office. This was a solid move, and I think this is like I said, this is a move that's not going to get much attention. But watch out. Middle of the year, this might be a move that's really helping them out. And they said it to Bob. You never want to see, you don't even want to speak of injuries. But if teams if this team can't stay healthy or there's an injury or, even with COVID, if a guy's on the list or something and can't play for a little bit, this is the perfect move for the New York Mets. So let's look at some of his other numbers because they really only did this year's number. Obviously, they talked about his regular season as well. So let's do this here. Okay, so 2020 stats, he had 185 at-bats, 232 batting average, 2 home runs, 15 RBIs, 16 stolen bases, and OPS of 593. His career, he's had 2,874 at-bats, 259 batting average, 80 home runs, 283 RBIs, 218 stolen bases, and OPS of 727. So that's that. Obviously, he's a switch hitter as well. He's not a lefty or a righty. He's switch, which that's another thing. I forgot about that. He's a switch hitter, which very good. He's the ultimate utility guy. He can not only play almost every position in the infield, but he can also bat left and right. That is your ultimate utility guy. A guy who can bat from both sides of the plate and play virtually almost every position in the infield and the outfield. Like I said, he's played every position in the infield except first. And he's played center and left, I think they said. So, yeah, obviously a switch hitter. His main position is a shortstop, obviously. That's his main. But, yeah, that's his main position. But, obviously, he's only 29 years old. And his debut came in 2013. So, it's not like he's been in the league forever. He's still he's still pretty young. But he obviously started his career with Houston, then went to Milwaukee. 2018, he started the year with Milwaukee, then went to Baltimore, and then again in Baltimore as well. And then last season, he started the season with the Marlins and then went to the Blue Jays, which is where technically he would be right now. To look at his best season with Baltimore, he played all 162 games. He played 162 games, 642 at-bats, 111 runs, 176 hits, 33 doubles, 5 triples, 24 home runs. Pretty much all careers highs in that season. He had 73 RBIs, 61 walks, and he only had 176 strikeouts, which, to be honest, isn't that crazy. And he batted .274, which was the highest of his... Actually, his highest of his career came in 2016, which he played 156 games, which he batted .285. So that was his third highest batting average career, .274, because then he batted .284, then .285, and then .274 as well. So, I mean, you're telling me, if you're getting a guy... I'm not saying Baltimore VR, because Baltimore VR was the best probably destination of his career. But if you're getting a guy who can put up nearly those numbers, or even like his second year in Houston or something, where you get 87 games out of him, or less than 87, but you get even if it's 50 games out of him, you give him 200 at bats or so. He'll get you maybe 5-10 home runs. Give you a 250, 260 batting average, and make some plays in the field and maybe steal 10, 15 bases. If you're telling me that's what he's going to do, I think that's great. He's at 218 stolen bases his career. It's 62 in one season. Some players have that in their entire career. This guy is really, when it comes to stealing bases, very good. And that's another thing too. He's very quick. He's quick with his bat. He's quick in the infield. He's overall a pretty solid player. But some of his good batting average, 284, 285, 274, career 259. Obviously, he's only had 400 strikeout seasons. Other than that, they've been pretty low, which is good. Especially for a utility guy, you want the strikeouts to be low, because if you're only getting 50 games or something, and you want to make your presence felt, and you don't want to go out there and strike out 3 times, go 1 for 4 every night with 3 strikeouts, that's not going to keep you on the team. So in a way, I feel like this is 2 things. This is one for Jonathan VR to, kind of not revamp. I don't want to say revamp his career, but, maybe in a way show teams that you can give him a 2-3 year deal. Show teams that he can do what he did in Baltimore and played 162. Part of the reason he played 162 in Baltimore was because that team was terrible. But obviously, he plays 162 games with another team. I think he can really make an impact. So, in a way, I feel like this is a little bit of both for VR, because I think this is kind of something quick in New York. I don't think he's going to be with the Mets for long. Part of the reason, one, unless if he wants to stay as a utility guy. Number 2, they have Lindor, who they're going to probably give all the money to. So, I would see VR maybe this being like a 1-year thing. Play here, make an impact, and maybe go out and not get a big deal, but go out and maybe get a little bit of a lengthier 2-3 $15 million deal from a team, and in a way, some teams that might be looking for shortstops, I'm talking next year already, but kind of just things like that. In a way, this is kind of, a little bit of a tryout for him, a little bit of, let me show these other teams that I can sign a little bit of a lengthier deal and make an impact and make it almost pretty much an everyday impact. Now, obviously, whatever the case may be, but I do think this is a good move for the New York Mets, and as much as I hate to say it, it's a good move for the Mets. I hate to say anything good about the Mets. I don't like to put good and the Mets in the same sentence, but I have to in this case, just because I don't like them. But I do think it's a good move. They're getting a solid player. I've seen him play a ton, seen him play with the Blue Jays, seen him play with the Orioles. Milwaukee, didn't see him play much, although I've seen a couple times. I saw him the one game play against Milwaukee where he had like a 2-home-runner game or something. But he definitely helped that Milwaukee team out. Like I said, this is a guy that could do a lot on the field. So a good move. And Jonathan Villar is headed. He is headed to the New York Mets. So we'll see how that goes there. I just wanted to check something. I just wanted to go back because I just wanted to see what positions he can play. Because there's obviously some guys out there. So, okay, first off, so he played 3 years with Houston, 3 years with Milwaukee, 2 with Baltimore. So to be honest, he hasn't done that much moving. Because he played 3 seasons with Milwaukee, he played 3 with Houston, 2 with Baltimore, and then last season it was split. So I mean, I don't know so much if you could say. I don't know if you could so much say he's bounced around a ton because he's only played with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in what 3, 6, 8, what 7 years or 9 years. 9 years, like 7 teams. It's not crazy. It's about 3 years a team, I guess. But it really it all depends. But he can play almost every virtual position on the infield. So, good move for the Mets. But coming up next, I'm going to go and talk about the MLB season plan. The MLB season has released its plan for the year. Has released what it's gonna do, what everything's gonna look like, and all the protocols and the safety stuff and things like that. We will talk about that. So, with all that being said, coming up next will be the MLB season plan. Coming up next. Alrighty. Obviously, obviously now that the NFL season's over, that's one of the big things. A lot of people are always sad the NFL season's over. They're like, oh, no more NFL. It stinks. Obviously even, when I was saying like, with the game picks and stuff, like we have to wait all the way until next year, obviously, to make all the game picks and stuff. And I get it, a lot of people are always upset. But, there's always a silver lining. Instead of looking at the glass half empty, you got to look at the glass half full. Glass half full, the MLB season's literally right around the corner. I mean, that's really the next big thing up is the MLB season. It comes before the NFL draft, and to be honest, we're already less than 2 months away because the MLB is planning on starting opening day April 1st, which it's February 9th, so February 1st would have been 2 months away. So we are less than 2 months away from the MLB season starting, and we are only about a week away from pitchers, catchers, only about a couple days away from pitchers, catchers, spring training starting. We are actually, as crazy as it may sound, we are, because we are only about 6 days away from the February 17th, which is when spring training starts, because it's February 9th, we're only about 8 days away, we're only 8 days away, so tomorrow, Wednesday will be officially a week until spring training starts for everyone. Pitchers, catchers, everyone, all the teams, they start. So they'll start, obviously, the training stuff, hitting all that. And then spring training games start, I think, as early as, the beginning of March. And then they go all the way through March, play about, probably 10, 15, 20 spring training games. And then play about, that amount of spring training games. And then get to April 1st and, obviously, start the 162 game season. So that's one thing you could look at. I get, obviously everyone's like, oh, this season's over and stuff, but MLB's right around the corner, and by April, NBA, you'll get a really good idea of who's going to make the playoffs and stuff, because then after April it's May, and then in May is when the season is, right, things really start to heat up. I know I said this a ton because almost every month things just start to heat up, but especially around April area, a lot of things start to heat up in sports. You have, obviously, the start of the MLB season. That's the first full month of the MLB season. You obviously have basketball season is really in its prime in the middle of the year, in the second half of the season, and really, you'll get a really good idea of who's going to make the playoffs. And NHL as well, especially NHL is only 56 games. By April, the NHL will be just wrapping up their season heading into playoffs. And then also in April is the NFL draft. And then in May is OTAs for the NFL. And then June's training camp. And then June's also the NBA Finals. And June's also baseball season. So, obviously it's, sports really start to heat up here in the upcoming months. Obviously, summer's a big thing for sports. Because you obviously have baseball, training camp, all that stuff. And then, football. But that's all the way in September. So, so the MLB season's about to start here. But MLBPA agreed to 7-inning doubleheaders, extra inning rule for 2021. So, obviously, last season I would like to say, actually, before I even start, I would like to first off say I'm very happy that we are playing a 162-game season and not playing a 60 or a 180 or a 150 or a 90 or a 120. I'm just glad we are playing 162. We play pretty much every single day, and you have your normal year, your normal playoffs, your normal baseball stuff that makes the sport so amazing. I know there's a lot of people that would disagree with me. Actually, maybe over half of the MLB fans may disagree about a 162-game season. A lot of people enjoyed last year because it was more competitive. Teams had to win quickly. There was not many times for losing streaks because it was only 60 games. Obviously, with 162, the first 30 games of the season. Not that they don't matter, but it's 30 games into the year for the MLB. That's not even halfway through yet. So if you start off 15 and let's just say 15-15, that's not terrible, or 10-25, that's not terrible. Because it's not even halfway through yet. As for the 60-game season, 30 games is already halfway through. If you were 10-25 or 10-20, you're done. You're probably not going to make the playoffs. So I could see that. Obviously, some people who wanting every game to count. Realistically, every game counts. I know people like to use that saying as every game, want to see every game count. Every game does count. I get it. People want to see that. Like to say that a lot. People like to say that. Really what it means is, every game should count. Every game should be, ready. Every game should, really make an implication. Obviously, in the 162, it's not the end of the world if you lose a game randomly in the middle of the season. But as for the 60 games, it did make a big difference. But I am glad we're playing 162. First of all, I thought last year was so short. I thought all the hype up, all the time that they were, going, obviously the entire time they were thinking about what they were going to do. Are they going to play? What are they going to do? To then only play 60 games, we still got baseball, but for only to be 60 games wasn't the greatest. So it's going to be good, and it's going to be fun to watch teams have over 100 wins this season. You assume some teams might go 110-52 or 115 and 40 or something, right? You're going to see a lot of that, with a couple of these teams. So I'm first off glad that they're playing 162. Like I said, I know there's a lot of people out there that will agree with me, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to disagree with me when I say that about I'm glad we're playing 162. I personally like 162. Every game I watch with the same energy. I watch it as I want the Yankees to win every single game. I know it's not going to happen because it's so hard to go 162-0. It's literally impossible. But obviously I want the Yankees to win every game. And, 162 gives you even more opportunities to win those games. And also, they're going back to the normal playoff. So now we get into some of the rules. Some of the things I don't like. The 7-inning doubleheaders. I don't like that. Okay? I've said this, and this is why I'm glad they're going to 162. I don't think you have to change the sport up just because of, the whole virus thing. I don't think you have to change everything up. Why all of a sudden now do you have to change the 7-inning doubleheaders? I'm not a big fan of the 7-inning doubleheaders. And the reason I say that is because, number one, I would much rather sit there and watch a 9-inning baseball game. 7-inning is too short for me. And number two, what's the reason? You can go out there and play 9-inning doubleheaders. These players will have no problem with it, right? I would much rather sit there and watch 2 9-inning baseball games than watch 2 7-inning baseball games. I'd rather watch 18 innings of baseball in a day than only 14 innings of baseball in a day. That's my personal thing. Okay, and another thing, too, with the baseball, and I took stats from last year's 60-game season. I know there's a lot of people out there who are going to say, those stats shouldn't count. They're such a small sample size. It was only 60 games. 20 home runs was good last season. I'm not that kind of guy. But what I will say is it's tough to take stats from it's really tough to take stats from a 6 or a 7-inning standpoint because it's tough. And you want to know why? Because 7 innings, if a pitcher goes out there and pitches 7 innings, if a pitcher goes out there and pitches 7 innings, that's considered a complete game. But not really. It's not really considered a complete game, in my opinion, because it's only 7 innings, right? Complete game should be 9 innings. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm personally not. Another thing, too, is you're eliminating 2 innings. If you're down by 1 going into the 7th, realistically, you would have 2 more innings to play. But you don't because it's only 7 innings. So I don't like that 7-inning rule. I'll deal with it. Hopefully the Yankees don't have to play that many doubleheaders. I know they implemented this because they had to get games in. They wanted to get them in quickly and stuff because if there was an outbreak and stuff like that. But I look at it as, hopefully there's not much rain because I don't want any rainouts. I don't want doubleheaders because I'm not a big fan of this whole 7-inning doubleheader thing. Now, I will say it definitely does, I guess it's quicker. Maybe it is for some of the fans who might not be a huge fan of baseball that maybe think it's a little too slow. Maybe 7 innings is a little bit more, energized, a little bit more, all right, we got to score now. Like it's only 7 innings where you're eliminating 2 innings. Like that might not seem like much, but 2 innings is a lot of opportunities. That's 6 outs you're eliminating. And that's another thing too. Like what if you pitch a perfect game? Can that even count on a 7-inning game because it's a complete game? But realistically, every other game is 9 innings. So what if one day you go out there, pitch a perfect game on 7 innings, but you don't pitch it on 9 innings? Like what you're going to do there? That's what's going to be interesting. And that's why I don't think the 60-game season, you can't take away the stats. Because again, it was a small sample size, but every game was the same. Now with the 7-inning doubleheaders, I'm just not a huge fan of it. I'm not a huge fan of doubleheaders. And another thing I don't like is the extra inning rule. I can't stand that. This is I think, one of the dumbest things MLB could have done. I don't like the runner starting on second base. Comment down below if you like this. I just don't like it. I cannot stand the runner starting on second base to start extra innings. You cannot give a runner a free base that he didn't even earn. You're just going to throw a guy out there on the base that he didn't even earn. You can't do that. You can't possibly do that. The MLB is doing it, but you shouldn't. I don't like the MLB rule. I like to see those games, some of these games that go really long. I like to see those games. I like the long 15, 16-inning games where it gets to the point where your bullpen literally done and you got to use some of, I've seen position players pitch. I like those games. I'm not a big fan of the doubleheader. I mean, I'm not the doubleheader, that too, but I'm not a big fan of this whole extra inning rule. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm really not, because you have to earn the base in baseball. You can't tell me that you're just going to go out there and extra inning. Single very well wins the game. A single very well wins the game. Now that you have a runner on second that he didn't even earn the base. I don't like this. I don't like the rule. I don't like that rule. That's my least favorite. I'll deal with the 7-inning doubleheader. Not a big fan of that, but I can't stand the extra inning rule where a runner starts on second base and you go there in the 10th inning and a runner's on second base. I just don't like that. I don't. I mean, very well, if the pass ball, he's already on third base. The pitcher could throw one pitch and he could be at third base already. I don't like that rule. And if you're going to do that, then you should reward the team with an out. Or at least put him on, if you're going to do that, put him on first base. Put him on first base. Don't put him on second. Let him run more than just second base. Make the rule to where a single doesn't score him. A single in right field, he's going home without a doubt. Especially if a quick runner. I mean, we talked about Jonathan VR today. Especially if it's a guy like him where he steals the base almost every season. And, that's almost every game. In 2016, he led the league. He was the stolen base leader. So even if it's someone like that. But anyone, most of the time, a single scores a run. Whether you're on second base or third base, it scores a run. First base, usually not. You would have to be really quick or there would have to be an error. But I don't like that. I don't like the double. I don't like the extra inning rule. Go out there and just do regular extra innings, please. I just want it to be normal extra innings. None of this stupid extra inning rule. Just stuff like that. I don't like that rule. I don't like it at all. So that's another rule I don't like. Now, some of the things I do like. I like the fact that they're playing 162 games. I like the fact that they're starting spring training early. I like the fact that there's no delay in the season. I like that they're letting the teams play at their facilities, let them play at their home. I know bubbles are good and all, but I think, for a regular year, we got to start to, I think, move maybe a little bit away from bubbles, just because I think the players, there's nothing better than, I think you get the best performance out of the players when they just go home to their own homes and then go back to the stadium instead of, in a hotel the entire time. I like that. And another thing I like is I think the protocols, all that, I think that should be good. The masks and stuff like that. The no universal DH, I'm kind of split. I like the DH a lot in the American League. I actually think it gives an advantage to the team in the American League. Just because, if you're going to tell me, who would you rather up in the ninth inning? Would you rather your pitcher up or would you rather your DH, a power hitter up? I would probably take a DH over a pitcher. And I know, and I know that that's one thing too, is I know you can pinch hit a guy, but then he's got to go in and pitch, right? So that's the problem. I like the DH. So the universal DH, to be honest, it only helps the Yankees. It only helps the American League. So I don't really have a problem with it. I think it should be universal. I think it impacted many teams because you really realize how helpful it is. I mean, that's another thing too. The amount of pitchers that get injured. There's the amount of pitchers that get injured running the bases. It's unbelievable. That's another thing as well. So when you're complaining about injuries, don't come to me because I think there should be a universal DH. But I'm glad they're just keeping AL, I guess, because it does give the Yankees advantage. So let's look at this. So MLBPA agreed to 7 inning doubleheaders extra inning rule for 2021. Major League Baseball and its Major League Baseball and its Players Association have a deal in place regarding health and safety protocols for the upcoming season. Joel Sherman of the New York Post initially reported the news Monday. The pact includes 7 inning doubleheaders like there were during the 2020 campaign. There will also be still a modified extra inning with runners starting on second base in an effort to prevent marathon games during the regular season. There will not be a universal DH like there was last season. Active rosters will consist of 26 players, with rosters expanding to 28 players in September. Of note, each team will allow to carry up to 5 taxi squad players. That a deal is in place in February is a drastic improvement from last year, when the two sides debated for months on a number of topics, including the length of the season, whether players' contracts would be prorated, how many teams would make the playoffs, and if the National League would also use the DH. It wasn't until June 23rd that the MLBPA announced the two sides had come to an agreement for a 60-game season. While the COVID-19 pandemic was undoubtedly a complicating factor in last year's negotiations, the prolonged back and forth delayed the season even more and led to plenty of frustration. As for this year's agreement, Hannah Kaiser of Yahoo Sports noted the union was in favor of the universal DH, while the league was not. The league said it was not a health and safety issue. One likely reason the union would want to expand the DH role would want to expand the DH role is because it would create more job opportunities. Per the agreement, face coverings will be required while at club facilities in the dugout. Players will not be required to wear masks on the field. Sherman also reported there will be a tracing technology in place that is similar to what the NBA uses to help identify close contacts if there is a positive COVID-19 test. When the season starts, the powerhouse Los Angeles Dodgers look to defend the World Series crown they won in 6 games against Tampa Bay Rays. And New York Yankees, this is not from the article, but the New York Yankees also tried to go back, are also going to try to go to the World Series and try to win it. But yeah, so I just wanted to look here at this one thing here. Pretty much it's going to be the same protocols. You're going to have screenings, your testing, you're obviously contact tracing. You're not 10 or more people not allowed. You can't have outdoor gatherings. On-field playing rules. This is what I want to get to. So any doubleheader scheduled in connection with the 2020 championship season, 2021 championship will consist of 2 7-inning games. Let me get back to that. So consist of that. But let's see. So, prohibited unsportsmanlike conduct will be strictly distancing umpires. Rosters, the active roster with 26 players. There will be obviously removed the 40-man roster when players. Obviously that. Club permitted to carry up to 5 additional taxi squad players. We read that. Obviously no designated hitter. Although there's actually a lot of people out there who disagree with that, who want the designated hitter, which I wanted as well. But at the end of the day, as long the Yankees still have it, so I guess that's good. Although I know there was many NL teams that really enjoyed it. That was one of the things, though, that was one of the big questions is with the NL and stuff was the fact that, these teams didn't really know how to build their rosters because they needed to know if they're going to do the DH or not. And that was one of the big things. But obviously they know now. So, but yeah, the Yankees. The Yankees posted this on their Twitter thingy here. So, let's see. So, loaded up and ready to roll. Next stop, Tampa. So, that was that. They showed them pictures of them loading up their trucks and stuff, heading on over to Tampa. Obviously, just kind of that stuff. But, fans are happy. I'm happy. I'm happy for the MLB season. It should be good. And obviously, like I said, hopefully the Yankees go out there and win it all. That's obviously the goal. There's going to be a lot of MLB news coming up soon. Very, very, very soon. There's going to be a lot of MLB stuff. I'll be covering free agency. Or not free agency. What am I talking about? Spring training. We'll be covering, the games. That kind of stuff. Well, I'll be covering the games. I'll be doing, when I come back onto the podcast and stuff. Last year, I did a Around the Diamond pod on the Sunday show. I did that last year. A little bit, the Around the Diamond pod. I'm thinking about if I should do that again. Comment down below if you would be interested in that. I'm still thinking about it, just because I know last year I did it a couple times, but then it kind of got a little. I think I might do a little bit of a different version this year. It's kind of like it's maybe just the rundown or Around the Diamond. But where I maybe do a little bit of a shorter version because sometimes I'm, busy and I can't always get to it. But, comment down below if that would be interesting, if you would be interested in something. Maybe it's a quick 20-minute video or a quick 30-minute video where I just run down Yankees, Mets, league, done. Just do what the Yankees do, Mets, league, done, and stuff like that. But I'm still deciding there. So now I got to do the other stuff, but excited for the MLB season. So now I move here to the other stuff here. As here, college basketball. Yesterday, Kansas won, Ohio State won, and Gonzaga won. Today, we've got Alabama, South Carolina give Alabama the win. Texas, Kansas State give Texas the win. Creighton, Georgetown give Creighton the win. And Texas Tech, West Virginia give Texas Tech the win. Miami also plays today. Miami plays 5-12. Miami comes in this game 5-12. Arkansas comes in this game at 14-5. Kentucky. I messed up there. Kentucky. So Kentucky comes in this game 5-12. Arkansas comes in this game 14-5. Kentucky is 1-point favorites. The over/under is 142 for this game. This game comes on at today, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ESPN. Obviously, Kentucky comes in this game struggling. Almost had the win. I don't know how these people still put Kentucky as the favorites. I mean, according to that, you just give Kentucky the win there. But it's interesting because it's interesting how they are still favorites in these games. I guess I'll just give them a win here. It's interesting how they're still favorites in these games. As for the NBA, Hornets, Raptors, Wizards, Mavericks won, Hornets won, Raptors won, Wizards won, Mavericks won, Spurs won, Suns won, Bucks won, and Lakers won. And today we got a couple of games. Knicks, Heat give Heat the win. Pelicans, Raptors give Pelicans the win. Warriors, Spurs give Warriors the win. 76ers, Kings give 76ers the win. Jazz, Celtics give Jazz the win. And Trailblazers, Magic give Trailblazers the win. Nets also play today. Nets coming in this game 14-11. Pistons coming in this game 5-18. Nets are 6.5-point favorites. The over/under is 229.5. This game is on at today, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find this game on FS Detroit and Yes Network. So I'll be watching on Yes Network, obviously. Let's see. I'll give the Nets a win here. Nets lost without Kyrie. They get Kyrie back. They get Kyrie back. They get, obviously Harden still going. And the Pistons are one of the worst teams in the league. So I think the Nets should win there. And then as for the NHL here, yesterday the Maple Leafs won, Blue Jackets won, Oilers won, Coyotes won, and Lightning won. Rangers lost yesterday 2-0. We moved to 4-5-2 on the season. Like I said earlier on the podcast, just couldn't get anything going on the offensive end. Today we got Oilers, Senators, give Oilers the win. Panthers, Red Wings give Panthers the win. Stars, Blackhawks give Stars the win. Lightning, Predators give Lightning the win. Ducks, Golden Knights give Golden Knights the win. Flames, Jets give Flames the win. And Sharks, Kings give Sharks the win there. So that's the NHL there. So now I move on to fantasy hockey or fantasy basketball and stuff here. So right now in fantasy basketball, I'm winning 284 to 243. So I'm winning 284 to 243. So doing pretty well there. Today I've got Kyrie Irving, Jimmy Butler, Jeremy Grant, Victor Oladipo, and Kemba Walker playing. This is the injury report. Kyrie Irving's day-to-day. Irving finger is listed as probable for Tuesday's game against the Pistons. Mark Stein of the New York Times reports. Victor Oladipo, day-to-day, Oladipo will be rested for Tuesday's game against the Pelicans. Mark Berman of Fox 26 Houston reports. So that's that. Kyle Lowry's day-to-day. Lowry won't return to Monday's game against Memphis due to back spasms. So that obviously happened yesterday. He was day-to-day as well. And Anthony Davis. Davis Achilles has been ruled out for Monday's game against the Thunder. Mark Stein of the New York Times reports. Of the New York Times report. So that happened as well yesterday there. But that's the lineup. And then as for hockey here, I am winning 23 to 21. So going pretty good there. Today I've got Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, Anses Kopitar, Johnny Gaudreau, Nicholas Backstrom. That game was postponed. So Johnny Gaudreau, Nicholas Ehlers, Joe Pavelski, Ryan Ellis, Shea Theodore, Duncan Keith, Adam Larson, and Jamie Benn. And today I've got Jacob Marshall and John Gibson in goal. So that's that there. So, so with all that being said, that will do it for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. It was another good podcast there as well. Obviously Nets on tonight again, so that should be a good game. Anytime the Nets are on is always fun and always good to watch them. So so that's what I got for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Another good podcast here today. So it was a good. And with all that being said, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.